You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Thanks to Kingsway Soft. Kingsway Soft's the leading integration solution provider. It offers solutions that make data integrations affordable and painlessly easy. Kingsway Soft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, Nav, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, Kingsway Soft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. Thanks to Kingsway Soft for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast. Well, Matthew, this is kind of a milestone episode. I don't know if I've told you this, but I was looking for the CRM Audio Network. This is our 100th episode.
Oh, so awesome.
It's an honor. Hard to believe. I would love to meet anybody who wants to go back and listen to all 100 episodes of every podcast we've ever done. I pity that person, but it's something.
Well, I mean, I wonder if I've actually listened to all of them at this point. But that's a pretty cool milestone. I'm excited. Let's make it a good one.
All right. So we were talking about procrastination last time, and when is good enough good enough? And you had some thoughts about procrastination versus patience. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So this one comes up as something that for me, there's this desire in this productive mindset that I try to have where I just want to get moving on things, and sometimes you can get moving too soon and end up wasting some time on something that ends up not being a real request. An email comes in, it's like, oh, I can knock this out really quick in 5 minutes, and then 4 minutes in, you get that notice back of like, oh, hey, found what I was looking for, don't bother with this request. Whereas with a little bit of patience, that request would have solved itself over time. So there is a certain amount of value that I can see in being patient with any of those requests that come in, whether that's an external force going after your time, or whether that is something that I myself want to do. But there's sometimes when that patience can be a really good thing, right? And for me, I find myself trying to embrace that more and more. But what it is bound by on the other side is it almost feels like it can become procrastination at some point of kind of wishing, waiting, hoping that it's not going to have to be something that I do. So, I mean, I'm wondering, have you had to deal with that line between kind of patience and procrastination? Is that something that you even think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know where you're going with that, because if you have something that you can't do right now for some reason, be it you don't have enough information or you can't do a complete enough job. I'll say, doing your taxes before all your financial statements are in for the year. That's not being wise. That's being foolish because you'll have to redo it. And so, yeah, sometimes you need to be patient. But I would draw the line, I think, is, are you intentionally doing it, and is it still at the front of your mind, or are you just putting it off? That, to me, is the difference. Because if I'm putting something off intentionally because I can't do it yet or there's higher priority things, I still want to be putting some mental energy towards that thing from time to time, not just out of sight, out of mind. And that's where I think procrastination is. I'm pushing it out of my mind. I can't think about this right now. I'll come back to it mañana.
Right on. So that's interesting. One thing that I kind of think of versus compared to this idea of am I just putting it off till mañana, is there a part of it that I could get done now? Kind of subdivide whatever that task is that I'm trying to be patient with, but is there some part of it that I could do that, even if it turns out that being patient is going to get me that little bit more of information, or something could change. But is there something that I could do that will make a little bit of progress, that'll have me further along than I am right now? So even if the thing doesn't get done until tomorrow, have I set myself up so I don't have the whole thing hanging over me, all night or, all day that day and then into the next day?
Right. Right. Yeah, I think you're right, because if it's something where I'm not doing anything with it, and I think I mentioned this before, one of my secrets is if I can't do the whole thing right now, I at least want to be making progress on that thing. So I'll use the example of the CRMUG Summit in October. I mean, that's in October, but I'm still need to be preparing for my sessions I'm going to be doing there now. I still need to be doing things. I'm not ready for it yet, but I've already got my my PowerPoint started. I've got my outline laid out. I've set up my demo environment that I'm going to be using to show voice of the customer surveys. I'm doing pieces and spacing it out so I don't get to the end and have that mad dash.
Right. No, that definitely. I think that's very much in line with the kind of thing that I'm talking about there. I would say, like, my mindset is a little bit different of a nuance, where it's not necessarily that I just start like anything out of it, though I do see the value in making that type of progress. But where I think I'm differentiating a little bit here is that sometimes there's a piece of it that I can do that may be applicable to not just that project, but to other things as well. So even if the original project, goes away for some reason, the work that I did is going toward something. And maybe that to use your CRMUG Summit analogy, maybe that's pulling some specific content together where if by some scheduling snafu I'm no longer going to be presenting on that topic, or the topic has to shift or whatever, maybe I'm repurposing the actual content there as a blog post, and I'm thinking about it in those component pieces where that content, even if CRMUG were to go away for some reason or shift or change, the effort that I've put in on something isn't going to be for naught.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Again, it's just doing something for it, not wasting your time, not pushing it out. You're being intentional about it, and I think that's just good planning. Because sometimes the reality is you just can't do it all right now, or there's things that legitimately are higher priority. I guess the red flag for me would be is if I'm telling myself this, I'm just being patient. I need to honestly look and say, am I really doing everything I can? Am I really, putting the effort I need to towards this, or am I just using that as a mental justification for procrastination? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, how much of an objective observer can you be on that? There's always going to be some sliver of it that's, from your perspective, and you have a narrative in your head, right?
Right. Right. Well, I think it's the what would you call it, the the LIFO approach. If you were an accountant, look at the things that have been on there the longest, and the things that are getting the oldest on your list, and say, why is this still here? Is there something I could do to get this off or make faster progress on it?
Well, and that concept of kind of going through the backlog and being aware of how long some things have been out there. I mean, I think that's definitely something that is helpful to make sure you're focusing on the right things, not letting some of that stuff slip off. Also, if you hit that point where maybe and I'm certainly guilty of this. So maybe I've been unproductive for a while. I've let that backlog of tasks grow for whatever reason. Sometimes life happens, things come up. But then trying to get back on the horse after that and go through that prioritization and kind of determining what is it that should stick around, and at this point, should some of those just come off the list entirely?
Right. Right, because if there's something that I have on my list, and I had an example of that where there was something, I had set myself a goal to learn something, a certain topic that I thought was interesting and important, and I just never found the time to do it. And I never found the time to do it. I got sick of looking at that, and you said, you know what, I still think that's interesting, but it's not of high enough value for me to do, so I just took it off.
Yeah. I'm curious. Can you share what that topic was?
Microsoft Dynamics Marketing, and boy, am I glad I did.
Hey, well, they're coming back around to that line between patience and procrastination. Maybe it started as patience, turned into procrastination, but ended up being a dynamite decision.
Well, I saw a good tweet from my MVP friend Jukka Nirinen in Finland. He was tweeting, I had always meant to sign up for Crash Plan for my backups, and I'm glad I did because they just announced they're going to discontinue their consumer backup service.
Oh no!
So sometimes putting things off is a good thing. All right, so let's talk about what's not productive.
All right, well, should we do the a cappella version?
We should.
So as far as not productive this week, it is going to be something that is not even brought on by technology, and this one is cataloging your collections of different things. I mean, I certainly am guilty of being a collector of like retro video games, and trying to always be on top of that. It is such a big time suck. You'd think, oh, classic, retro gaming. There's a finite number of things, but when you start getting into that, you realize, oh, there's almost no end.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not like our friend Mr. Hobbit who collects comic books and action figures, but I can respect that. If you enjoy that kind of thing, if you love Star Wars, which I know you do, and you like to collect stuff. But I do collect vinyl records, and I'm not just late on the bandwagon kind of guy who just started buying vinyl records. I have records that I owned back in the 80s, and I never really stopped. I guess I did around the late 80s when the CDs first came out, but I was buying records, through the early 90s. So again, it's not just something I've been doing. But that's about the only collection I have. But I have, from time to time, and talking to friends who have collections, I know that many of them once you get to a certain size of a collection, you forget what you have. And I was looking through, I actually have 2 copies of 1 or 2 records because I didn't know I had it, and so I bought. So I guess the question is it productive to catalog your collection? Or another thing I've done is I put all my records in alphabetical order by name of the artist. Some people I think I'm crazy for that, but I don't know. If I ever want to listen to Ray Charles, I can get it right away.
Yeah, well, and for that one, it's half of that cataloging might be trying to figure out where you actually have it stored if you have enough records.
Right. So again, I think it's something that it can be productive, and then it can save you time, but also quickly you realize if I don't keep enough time to keep up with my system, it's going to fall apart. And there's nothing worse than a half-organized collection. Yeah,
well, and there's also a danger in the cataloging of it where that can become, in like a completionist type of mentality, you end up focusing on trying to get more and more of building out that collection, and then the seeking of that missing volume you have, or rather that missing album you have in a certain artist's collection, that becomes the time suck on its own.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because when I had Twilight Zone season 1 through 3 and season 5, it really irked me that I didn't have season 4. Although season 4 is pretty bad. So anyway, So again, that's not productive. But again, if you do it for fun, I won't count it against you. This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. You can follow Matthew at his blog connectingthedata.com or on Twitter at MC Anderson. You can follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that offers fine podcasts. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.